Today is October 18th, 2016. This is your Lake of the Ozarks Upper Osage fishing report. This report is courtesy of Joe's Lake Ozark Guide Service. The lake conditions right now, the water conditions, the lake level is 658.3.5. It's about 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet below summer pool. Lake level has stayed pretty much consistent and the same over the last couple 3 weeks. Watercolor, depending on if you're in the creeks or on the main lake. The main lake is muddy. Truman is dumping water in, and so as that water is pulled through Bagnell Dam, it pulls that mud down the channel, and so the main lake areas are pretty dirty. You know, when you get back into the creeks, the back of the creeks, especially those that are protected from the wind, those are a lot clearer, definitely more fishable. If you have a creek that just gets pounded by the wind, and we do get some heavy wind days on this time of year, then those creeks are going to be a little bit dirtier. So that kind of gives you an idea of the water conditions. Water temperature, it's in the high 60s, low 70s in the afternoon, but it's definitely on a downward trend on its way down. So that's the water conditions right now on the lake. Now, the bite is kind of slowed up here in the Upper Osage. I don't know the exact reason why. There's still shad in the creeks. Some of the main lake pockets that had shad full of shad and way in the backs of the pockets, those have kind of pulled out a little bit. I really don't know why. I don't believe the lake is turning over yet here in the upper area. The water's still like close to 70 degrees, but I'm not a biology major, so I don't study that. But the bite has definitely slowed up in the upper lake area. A lot of the fish that we're catching are really scattered. You go into a pocket or a back of a creek or into a cove, and you don't seem to catch 3, 4, and 5 in a spot. You seem to catch one here and one there. So, and that could be due to fishing pressure. You know, the lake gets a lot of fishing pressure from September through October. A lot of tournaments going on, a lot of people on the water. Of course, we had the Big Bass Bash with however many 2,000, 3,000 anglers that were on the water during that time. So the fishing pressure will also move and force those fish to relocate if they're constantly having lures just pounded at them. So that's kind of the fishing conditions, what's going on. Right now, for the last 3 days, we've been catching our fish about halfway back in the creeks. Now, when I mean fish, I'm talking about keeper-sized fish. Halfway back in the creeks, and some of the better bites we've had have been just inside the mouths or halfway back in these main lake pockets. It's almost like where that mud and clear line kind of mix and meet a little bit. That seems to be where we're catching our best fish. You can still go to the back of the creeks and catch some fish, but those fish seem to be a lot smaller than what we're catching about halfway back. And if you have the ability to afford a nice graph with some side imaging, you can look at that graph as you go into a cove, and you can see that a lot of the bigger balls and bigger groups of shad right now are about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way back. Now, the best bite for us has been an afternoon bite. That's basically the best bite for us. When that sun comes out, it really pulls those shad to the surface. And I think when those shad pull to the surface, the bass move up and they get a little more aggressive as well. So that's kind of what's going on right now in the upper lake area. All right, let me show you. This is kind of what we're catching some fish on right now. On the bright sunny days, when the bite's a little tougher, we go to more finesse techniques. Go to the Zoom trick worm. This is a Magnum trick worm. I've got this on a ball jig head with a little wire weed guard. It's weedless. You can pitch it around docks, pitch it on lay down logs. I mainly pitch that around docks when we have a real bright sunny sky. Of course, I like to throw a tube, mainly because it's a little bit different. If I go into a cove or creek and I see a lot of people are flipping jigs, or if I see they're pitching the Magnum trick worms, then I might go in behind them and pitch this tube, and I think it'll just a little bit different bait, gives the fish a different look, and get a few more bites that way. And then, of course, the lure I love to throw is the jig. I catch a lot bigger fish on the jig than I do on the trick worm and the tube, but especially on the low lighter conditions, you can catch some pretty good fish on the jig. On the bright sunny days, you really got to get this jig way back up underneath the floats of the foam, because the bigger fish seem to move way back in those really dark areas. Now, if you're fishing in the back of the creeks where there's a lot of shallow cover, lay down logs, of course the square bill crankbait is good. The problem right now with throwing a crankbait anywhere, even a topwater bait for that matter, is because we've had these windy days and the sun or the leaves are falling. Leaves are all over the edge of the bank, so you throw these in there, and every other cast, could be every cast, you're getting hung up on the leaves. So you got to have a lot of patience. You throw these right now. And then you can still catch fish on topwaters, although we didn't really have a good topwater bite the last 3 days. Like I said, the bites really slowed up, so we kind of went more to the worm and the jig type presentations. But you can still catch fish on topwater bite, and the topwater bite is going to get better as we go. I always say I love deer season. I don't deer hunt, but I love deer season for 2 reasons. One, the lake empties out, everybody goes deer hunting, and it leaves the lake for the fishermen. And 2, the topwater bite seems to really turn on around deer season. Now, you can throw your whopper ploppers, you can throw your buzz baits. You know, this is a Zara spook. You can throw the pop-Rs. Your favorite topwater lure is what I would throw. One thing I will tell you on the topwater presentations is that if you are throwing a buzz bait or you're throwing a whopper plopper and they're rolling behind it and they're missing it, have a second rod rigged up with either the trick worm that you can throw in there or a different type of topwater bait. Like if you're throwing a buzz bait that's going at constant speed, then you can come back and throw a spook and stop, make it stop and go. A little bit slower presentation. Sometimes I'll throw a spook, and if they blow up on the spook, then I might go back in behind it with a pop-R. Especially when these fish are lying underneath the dock runways, because when they get under the runways of these docks, just inside the points, these fish are going to live there. They're going to stay there. They're not going to move. So if they blow up with a topwater bait and miss it, you can usually pitch right back in there and catch that fish with either another topwater bait or a trick worm or tube, or pitch a jig in there and behind it. So that's kind of what's going on in the upper lake area right now. Kind of waiting for that next change. We really need a good weather change to make these fish turn back on like they were about 3 weeks to a month ago. Hoping we can get some cool weather, get that water temperature down a little more, get that topwater bite going. And if Ameren, if they do pull the lake a little bit, it'll just suck some of these fish out of the back of the creeks, and they'll move into these creek channels. And I love it when they start pulling the lake and they draw the lake down a little bit, even if it's just a foot or two, because it kind of condenses the amount of water that these fish can swim in, and they'll move to a steep bank. And the banks that are steep banks, when you get back in these creeks and coves, is the side the creek channel runs on. It's the steeper side. Every cove has a flatter side, and every cove has a deeper side. You just have to go in and find it, or you can look at your topographic maps and look at those things. You can find those. So those are good spots to try as they drop the lake. And when that happens, it becomes really good with the jig time. The jig bite really turns on. That's about halfway through November, all the way up through Christmas. We have a really good jig bite here in the Upper Osage. So good luck in your fishing. I'll try to do another report next week to see if the conditions change a little bit, because I know a lot of anglers have a lot of their season-ending club tournaments coming up. They like to get those over with in October. So good luck in your fishing. Good luck in your season-ending championships. Have fun.